Welcome back to another episode of the Organizedpreneur Podcast. I'm Aldreama Harper, your efficiency architect and host of the Organizedpreneur Show. And so we had another networking event, which I host monthly with two amazing co-hosts. And let me tell you, the female founders, the agency owners, and the podcasters, they really showed up. And so there's a question that has to be submitted prior to coming to the event so that it will help us, to address what the needs are in the podcasting industry. And so, however, during the networking event, sometimes we have a guest speaker. Sometimes we one of the three of us will speak. And then sometimes we just don't have the time to answer all the questions. So in that case, I do an episode strictly for Q&A and to answer the questions that were submitted for the networking event. So this is the episode. So today I'm going to be answering those questions that were submitted. We're going to dive into the exact questions you all asked, which had to do with monetization, marketing, logistics, all of the things. And so if you're currently just sitting right there at the growing plateau, I want you to grab your notebook because we're going to help you on this episode by answering your questions because they were important to you and they were important enough for you to take the time to ask the question. Okay? But I always like to start with my foundational scripture, which comes from 1 Corinthians 14:40, and it says, "Let all things be done decently and in order." All right. So many of the podcasters and founders want massive audiences, right? They want sponsorships. They want success in their podcasts. They want to really experience some growth in their podcast. Okay? So I want to share another scripture with you that's going to help to lay the foundation for answering those questions. Luke 14:28 says this. It says, "For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it?" And so that leads into the question that was one of the questions that was submitted, because if you haven't counted the costs in your operations, then you're just throwing money at marketing or trying to monetize a broken system, which will only amplify the chaos. Okay? So you have to lay the foundation first. All right? So let's start with question number 1. Or should I say it was a theme, right? Because in with the questions, what I will do is I will group them together if I got several people asking the same question or the same type of question. So our first theme of questions came from a few attendees who asked this: where can you start monetizing, or when, can you start monetizing your podcast? Do you have to wait 6 months or what? Okay. And then another attendee mentioned that they launched an analytics platform and want to land enterprise clients. So let me answer that group of questions. First, you do not need to wait 6 months, and you do not need 10,000 downloads to monetize. Okay? The wait 6 month rules, the wait 6 months rule applies an old model of getting CPM sponsorships, like getting paid $20 to read an ad for a mattress company or something like that. You've seen that, right? We are media CEOs. We don't play the penny game. Okay? So my answer to that is you can monetize one podcast episode if you design it as a sales asset for your own high ticket offer. If you have a B2B service, a consulting package, or an agency company, then your podcast should be filtering highly qualified leads straight to your calendar. Okay? Because monetizing isn't about time. It's about having a clear operational sales funnel attached to your microphone. How about that? Right? So you don't need to wait 6 months. You don't have to have 10,000 or more downloads. You can do it with the first episode, which is, one of the things that I tell my clients all the time. Those that come to me and that's what they're looking for. You monetize yourself. Okay? Monetize yourself with your own offer. Because a lot of times when you're looking for sponsorships, there's a criteria that they want you to have met, before you even approach them. So you can monetize with or sponsor yourself with your own offer, or what you can do is consider being an affiliate for a platform or a software or a product or what have you that you currently use, especially associated with their product. Okay? All right. Let me go to the next one. Our next question is so brilliant. And what they asked was, we want to get serious about growth. If we had a marketing budget, what would you recommend putting our money toward for the highest ROI to break through the plateau? I love this question. But hear me clearly. Do not spend a dime on paid ads until your organic backend pipeline is flawless. Okay? If you pay to drive traffic to a podcast, but you don't have a system to capture the leads, or maybe a team that's, already maxed out editing the audios or something like that, if that is the case, and then you're just paying to break your own business faster. That was a lot of words. I know. I'm going to say that one more time, just so we're clear. If you pay to drive traffic to a podcast, but you don't have a system to capture your leads, or your team is already maxed out because they're editing audios, or you are editing all of the audios, and you're maxed out, then you are paying to break your own business faster. Okay? But for the highest return of investment, the highest ROI, your first investment should be in operational efficiency. Have you ever watched, so Shark Tank, I think I say this all the time. Shark Tank is one of my favorite quote unquote reality shows that I watch. And sometimes the guests that will come on to pitch the sharks, and let's just say one of the sharks actually, decides that they want to invest in that person, or sometimes it's just, their appearance on the show. And sometimes what will happen is they will actually do like a follow-up, little blurb to show where they are now, where that person is now. Maybe they got a shark, or maybe they didn't get a shark, but they appeared on the show. And without fail, one of the things that they will say is, our website went down because we had so many people coming to the site, or we didn't have enough, to fulfill the order, or what have you. And a lot of times what those sharks will say, we got to make sure that you can get these orders, fulfilled, because once they see you on the show, they're coming. People are going to come to buy. So it's the same thing. Your first investment should be in operational efficiency. And that's basically what they're saying. If you don't have something in place to handle or have the capacity to handle the people that's going to come to buy your product, then it's going to be messy. So that is my point. You want your fulfillment engine to be able to run smoothly, okay, without you reacting or without there being a bottleneck in your process, right? Then you can invest in, maybe a PR firm, or even as in the podcasting space, guesting on a high level show that is going to get you some people to your site, or to your lead magnet, whatever it is that you're offering. You got to have some operational efficiency. Okay? All right. So the final theme covers the weeds. Like, the question was, and it's mainly about logistics and tech stack. So the question was, how do I get started with logistics? Does the hosting platform matter? Is it worth going to a studio or to have someone help with the editing? Okay. And if I recall, we did kind of answer that question. That person was actually at the event live, and I think she had an opportunity to ask the question live, but I wanted to ask it here on the show because some of you who perhaps were not able to attend, then maybe you have the same question. Okay? And so is it worth going to a studio to have someone help with editing? Or does the hosting platform matter? Or how do I get started with logistics? So when you are asking those questions, it tells me that you could be drowning in the manual labor of being a content creator instead of operating as an executive producer or a CEO of your own business or the CEO of your podcast. So to answer this quickly, yes, your hosting platform matters, but not as much as your workflow. And as for the studio, I don't recommend renting a studio because you might get frustrated with the potentially messy, or should I say, the tech stack. Okay, you might get. It sounds like you might be frustrated with your own tech stack already. Okay. Or maybe you don't have or don't know what to put in place. Okay? So, let me answer this succinctly. Your platform, your hosting platform definitely matters. Okay? I always recommend Riverside. That is it's one of the platforms that I highly recommend. But what you actually need is a lean tech stack. So you need, and this is the reason why I recommend Riverside. You need a place to record. You need a pipeline to process the edits, the show notes, and a clear system to be able to hand it off. Or if you're doing it yourself, but the bottom line is you don't need a fancy studio. You just need the system that removes the friction, right, from your living room or whatever space you're in. So if you have a nice, clean, clear background, and that's fine. You don't have to go and rent out a studio unless you just want to. But back to my point about Riverside, you can do all of the things that need to be done inside of the platform. You can record, you can process the edits, you can do the show notes, you can host, you can do webinars, you can do all of the things that you need to do with the one platform. So I highly recommend that as your virtual office space or your virtual studio. Okay? Don't go out and rent a studio unless you just want to, have a different type of ambiance. Okay? So, now there are other platforms that I do recommend, but we're not talking about that right now. Okay? So, if you asked these questions yesterday, and you're here and you're listening right now and you're saying, okay, she's talking my language. Maybe she knows a little something. And maybe the back end of your podcasting operations is a mess, then you don't really need another course. You just need some operational structure. All right? Operational structure is foundational to your business and to your podcast. All right? And this is exactly what I do as an efficiency architect. I partner with established founders and podcast agencies and service-based business owners to do an operational audit where I come into your business, audit the messy pipelines, and help you build a personalized, custom AI-driven agency playbook so you can cut your production time and command higher rates and finally scale past that plateau, because that's what these people were actually asking. Okay? So if this is you and this speaks to you, and if I answered your question or if you have more questions, then I have a few spots that's left that you can get on a call with me. So if you asked these questions on yesterday, or if you're listening right now and you're just nodding your head because you know the back end of your operations, whether it's your business or your podcast operations, you don't need another course, but you know that the back end of your business is a mess. The back end of your operations, your podcast operations, is a mess. Okay? And you need an operational restructure. That is exactly what I do. I partner with you, whether you are an established founder or a podcast agency, or perhaps you are launching your podcast and you want to set the foundation for your podcast and you have a business that you want to tie this into, then I'm talking to you. Okay? I want to partner with you, come into your business, do an audit in your pipelines, take a look at them, and help build an AI system that's custom just for your business. An AI-driven agency playbook is what I call it. So you can cut your production time and command higher rates. Okay? And then you can finally scale past your plateau. So I do still have a few spots. So if you're ready to step fully into your CEO role, then you will see the links in the show notes to get in contact with me, get on my calendar so that we can discuss where you are, Fill in the gap between where you are now and where you're trying to go. Get your business operating decently and in order. All right? So that is it for now. I want to say a thank you. I want to say a thank you to everyone that showed up to the networking event, and mainly protect your peace. And I'll see you in the next episode. Have an amazing day.
Podcast launch pad where the dreams take flight. Entrepreneurial spirit out of sight, out of mind. Every episode, knowledge taking flight. Getting organized, keep the hustle tight.